Welcome everybody to another thought-provoking episode of Exponential Africa, where we bring you the pioneering innovations and leadership insights from around the globe to Africa. Today, we explore the vital role of responsible leadership and responsible business in a digital age, emphasizing its impact on both technology adoption and societal progress. Joined by renowned expert Laila Pawlak, we're going to discuss the challenges leaders face in this era of rapid technological change and the significance of ethical decision-making. From guiding digital transformation to fostering sustainable practices, we're going to delve into how responsible leaders shape the future of organizations and communities. So let's kick it off. I'm going to welcome Laila Pawlak, who is a dear friend and is also the CEO and co-founder of Rehumanize Institute and formerly the co-founder and CEO of Singularity U Nordic. She's been named one of the top 100 female role models in Denmark and top 50 and 100 people in tech in the Nordics for multiple years in a row. She's an active angel investor. She's a co-author of The Fundamental Fours: How Do We Design Extraordinary Customer Experience in an Exponential World? And she's also a faculty member at Singularity University on impact leadership and the future of work, as well as a sought-after facilitator and executive. Lyla, great to be with you here on Exponential Africa.
Well, thanks for having me. Wonderful to be here. I'm excited.
And I'm really excited that you're coming back to South Africa, and we're going to be seeing you in person at the Singularity Summit. But before we get into the conversation, let's start with your exponential journey and how did you get into this place?
Well, so as you read my bio, it seems like, long bios just make you seem old, but there's sort of a journey, I actually started out with sort of HR and employee experiences and customer experiences. And as I sort of dived more and more into this notion of experiences, and I met a wonderful person called Joe Pine, who wrote The Experience Economy. I was really taken by this whole notion of how do you create transformational experiences? And obviously a huge part of that, more and more so, is leveraging technology. And that's sort of where I got into the Singularity orbit. And long story short, we and meaning my co-founder, Chris Ostergaard, we ended up setting Singularity University up in the Nordics under the name Singularity U. And so I've always been really taken by this notion of how do you use experiences to transform people, and that's the same leaders do. They set up a culture, they create experiences, and help support employees drive change and impact. In the midst of all of that, I also ran some accelerator programs, so the whole technology side. But so I think the merge for me has really been, extraordinary experiences that can help drive transformations, whether that's individual transformation or organizational transformation, even societal transformation. And then how is technology more and more so playing a role in that? And then ultimately, the people that drive this change, that guide this transformation, the leaders and change makers, how do we equip them best to do that? And that's sort of everything I've done has sort of touched upon those different topics in different ways.
Wow, it's just incredible. I mean, I know personally, I've learned so much from you over the years,
and likewise.
Being able to listen to a lot of your talks and your content and your workshops, it's really been phenomenal. I mean, all the way back to 2015.
I know we go way back. And I had the pleasure of, I'm very easy to go to the summit in South Africa because I love South Africa. I come there as often as I get an opportunity. I even got married in South Africa. So it has a very special place in my heart. And I think, I'm sitting here in the global north and you in the global south. And we actually run a program where we also sort of bring people together from the global south and global north. And it's one of my my favorite things to do, because there's so much to learn from the different cultures, the different ways of applying technology, the different challenges that our societies and organizations face, but also the commonalities that we also have. And I find that so incredibly exciting. So I'm always ready to come back. October weather is starting to get bad here too. So, great chance to go south. So I'm looking forward really a lot.
Yeah, I love what you're doing about, really bringing these different types of leaders together to share ideas and different perspectives. I mean, I've been on the program for the last 2 years with you on that. Yeah. And it's been a real eye opener hearing the Nordic perspective and the South Africans perspective.
Yeah. And I think if I can just add to that, I think one of the key things is that we are really at a very special place in time, because technology is accelerating so much. And I generally, I often say, the more technological we become, the more human we also need to become. So the human challenges we as leaders face are the same in the global north and the global south, at least part of them. And we need to work across the globe, across organizations, across ecosystems, in order to drive an ethical and responsible agenda forward. And so we cannot let borders put us in between that. We need to work together to align on what is the future that we want to create together.
Absolutely, and that's a perfect segue. And just to kick off the discussion, and how would you define responsible leadership and responsible business in your view? And so what constitutes responsible leadership in today's rapidly changing technological landscape?
Yeah, and so
paradigms.
Yeah, so I was really taken by that question, and so was Chris Osegard, my partner, and we work with a lot of different people around that. And so one of the things that we actually wanted to do was to find out what is it, because we also felt that it was very different what different organizations were doing, sustainability, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so we sort of wanted to deep dive into this field of what we would call responsible business, which is sort of an umbrella terminology for all of the ESG, for responsible use of technology, for diversity, equity, inclusion, all of these different topics that people would sort of put under this umbrella. And so we wanted to deep dive into that. So we actually started out by doing a global study alongside our partner Accenture, where we looked at the organizations that do the most on this responsible business agenda. What is it that they do? And I will make it short, but we basically found out and mathematically validated 4 key pillars. So the key drivers of responsible business, there are 4 of those. And we actually recently did the study again with a special emphasis on leadership in the age of generative AI. And we sort of validated those 4 pillars. And they are ecosystem action, which is really about how do we collaborate in our external ecosystem. Imagine you are a global supplier of clothing or coffee or whatever it is. You cannot do anything on your own if you cannot really change the entirety of the supply chain if you work alone. You need to work sometimes with the supply chain, but also even sometimes with your competitors. There are organizations that do this as well. So ecosystem action externally and also internally. Across silos in the organizations, the bigger we get, we also know it's not just about what we do in our little group, but the responsible business, they were really, really good at working across internally as well. Then it is really about future focus. Future focus is where leaders also play a key role. The organizations that drive the responsible business agenda, they are very strong in future focus. They look to the future in the sense of, like, they would go to a summit like the one that you're hosting. They would continuously look out for signals and trends and spot what's going on and pick up some of these things. They would have methodologies to do scenario planning. I know we're doing some of that in South Africa when I'm getting there as well. So they would really double down on making sure that everybody has a sharp lens for future focus. And then it's responsible business indicators, which is a play on key performance indicators, which is really about setting targets that are measuring this responsibility that the organizations were doing. And then finally, the one thing, and this was the one thing that correlated the most with financial outcomes, was impact leadership. And impact leadership is really about role modeling. It's about leaders, individual leaders, and this is where the individual leader can actually play a way more significant role than we think. We could see very clearly from the study that leaders that are showing up as role models on this agenda, that are personally taking a responsibility for diversity, equity, and inclusion, for example, responsible technology, those kinds of things that are really driving this agenda themselves, that has a positive impact on the organization. And then it's also about the leaders being able to create an inclusive culture, meaning when we are doing technology development, for example, it's not always the top executives that knows the technology in depth. Right? So we need to build an inclusive culture where we can get the programmers, the engineers into the playing field and be part of strategizing in different ways. So impact leadership really is a key part of responsible business. I know that was a little bit of a long answer, but defining responsible business, we actually did with these 4 key pillars, and impact leadership being a key part of that.
No, I love that. I think it's so pertinent to today's times, especially with this rapid pace of technological advancements. You know, we are seeing multiple industries being disrupted. We're seeing all these new platforms come online that we've been speaking about at Singularity University for many years. You know, the AI platform, the robotics platform, the blockchain platform, the metaverse platform. You know, they're all these new tools that are going to be skills of the future, and for leaders to engage with them, it's so important. You know, why is ethical leadership today important? You know, with all of this rapid development, and you know, how does it impact these organizations and societies going forward?
Yeah, so I think you point to it very specifically, the notion of the rapid change of technology, the opportunity for the individual leader, even if they attend pretty much everything there is worth attending, they read every book and hear every podcast and watch every show, they will not be able to keep up entirely, right? And the thing is, the complexity is also almost exponential. Like we are not able to see and spot everything that's going on, even with a sharp future focus. And so the complexity is also increasing. And with that, it used to be that many leaders were top experts within their specific field. Now, that's not always the case. The leader might be more of a strategic voice in the organization, a great leader that can mobilize, that can create an inclusive culture, all of these things. And so the notion of what's happening with technology. Now, when I talk to organizations, and we did a lot, as I said, we just did the study on leadership in an age of generative AI. A lot of organizations are sort of scrambling to figure out what's our place in this AI. It's kind of like, you know, I feel like the beginning of the internet, people are like, yeah, I can kind of imagine this is going to hit us, but we don't really know how. Some are starting projects, but it's sort of very sandboxy still. And there's a lot of frameworks that are not in place. I mean, look at legal frameworks around the world and not in place. There's a lot happening in that field, but the technology is way ahead of the legal frameworks and also the organizational frameworks. We don't really know how to navigate. So a lot of the things we have to talk about in a sort of also, we have to envision threat casting, what might happen. We have to start doing different things as leaders and making calls on things that we don't actually either know in depth or have the frameworks in place to judge from. So that means we have to lead in a whole other different way, and we need different allies than we might have had before in order to make those calls and continuously make new calls and iterate our decisions in order to keep up with the technology. So it's very difficult. There's not an easy answer here, but that is why having a focus at first on the ethical side of things, because right now with the technology that we have, sorry, I keep talking here, but the thing is, the faster the technology goes, we are also able to now scale and hit so many more people than we were able to before. If we made a decision, maybe we would, it would have an influence on 100, maybe 1,000 people, and it would take quite a while before the sort of really big network effects take place. That's not the case anymore. With the push of a button, you might be, hitting 100 million people, in a relatively short amount of time. So we need to really be mindful of the ethical consequences of whatever choice that we make.
No, I think that's so interesting. It's really, really, one of the key critical factors. I love what you were saying around ethics and impact. So, if you're focusing on impact leadership, and you actually want to create a positive outcome in the world and a positive future for humans, there's a good chance you're going to be building products and services and running your business in an ethical way, or using these AI tools or robotics, whatever it is, in a more ethical manner, right?
Yeah, and I think, I'd like to think, so one thing that we found in the study that I was referring to, that I personally found very interesting. I've been both in the sort of very commercial space and the more sort of impact-driven space. And as in all other industries and areas, we're seeing more and more conversion. You're not really in a position down the line right now to be a responsible business might make you able to differentiate in the market. We are more sustainable. We, take care of our employees. We, whatever, live up to XYZ ESG targets. Down the line, that's going to be more of a business imperative. Everybody's going to do it, and everybody's going to have to do it, because we are starting to see legal frameworks on being a responsible business being put into place, meaning you will not be able to differentiate yourself by being a responsible business and an impact leader. You will be harmed and punished if you are not. So we might as well get started and get on the boat. But one thing that I found that was very interesting, we did actually see a correlation. I can't prove causation, but I can prove correlation between being a responsible business and financial outcome. Not by a little, but by a lot. And I'm happy to share the study. It's freely available. But we could actually see, and again, validate in the second study, that the organizations that do the most on responsible business also performed significantly better financially. And that's very interesting. So you can actually, if you do things in a proper manner, if you are responsible business, it can actually also not only influence your impact to the world and to the clients and the customers and societies and communities that you work with, but also your bottom line. And I think that's important, because that's when we can activate some of the organizations that otherwise might be skeptical on this agenda.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's spot on, and I think it's going to lead us. It's going to take leaders into the future by embracing these sort of strategies. And just looking ahead, how do you see this leadership pillar evolving, and how's it going to change and adapt?
Yeah. So I feel like I actually, so I've been in the leadership space, and we ran leadership programs for the better part of 15 years or 20 years or something like that. Who's counting anyways? But I really,
how's that possible?
Yeah, well, there's a screen. I don't know if there's a lot of filters on your side, but anyways, but I do really feel like we are seeing a lot of change happening. I can see it in the request of what are the leadership programs that organizations want to host or want to have help hosting. What are the topics that we discuss? And the leaders themselves, what are the things that really create value deeply for them? And some of the things that I'm pretty confident we're going to see a lot more of is this whole notion of, it used to be cool working 80 hours a week and, working yourself partly to death and stuff like that. That is really not cool anymore. I think the whole notion of not work-life balance, I hate that terminology. I think about life because it indicates there's work and then there's life. And ideally, those two are sort of intertwined. I think the future of leadership is being able to create an organization and role model that yourself, where you have life balance, where you thrive and flourish as a human being, not just as a leader, but as a human being. So we are starting to see leadership way more holistically. And also we are starting it, and COVID sort of accelerated it, because that allowed people to talk about mental health for the first time, sort of really without, that being sort of challenging, I would say. So really this life balance, I think, is something I would think about as an organization, as a leader. How am I contributing to everyone's life balance? I think actually we're seeing legal frameworks that will also support that down the line. Like right now in Europe, there was a time registration. Some will say that's a step back, but it's to make sure that certain people are not being taken advantage of. They cannot work more than X, Y, Z, and so we are starting to see that. I think another thing is really on this technological agenda. Leaders know that technology is influencing their business. They don't necessarily know how, and they are not the tech experts, but they will need to understand more and more about the signals and the trends and the capabilities of the technology, so that they can envision what might that, not so that they can learn how to code, that doesn't matter. It's really about being able to envision down the line, what is this going to mean for our business? Who's our new competitors? Who might be our new allies, our new partners? So we need to get sort of the understanding of technologies. We need to go to summit like yours, or like really get sort of that injection of understanding technology. And then it's really about understanding, how do we ensure that we are a responsible business and we are responsible leaders? Because we will be judged by the future. We will be judged in both our organizations. We're also actually seeing leaders being sort of the equivalent to the business. So it's not necessarily only the business that is being challenged in media and stuff like that. If the business is doing something wrong, it's the individual leader, which is kind of, so that we see that also in recruitment now. Leaders are being evaluated not just on their resume, but on what did they say on social media 5 years ago. How do they thrive as a human being? So this whole notion of how do I as a leader show up responsibly and drive my organization forward responsibly? That's definitely some of the key things I would highlight. There are a lot more, but I'm sure we don't have time for that now.
Well, no, thank you so much. I think it's so interesting, and I can't wait for you to come to South Africa for the Singularity South Africa Summit in October. We're looking forward to hosting you and to sharing, more of these ideas and concepts and strategies. And
I'm super excited.
Just before we go, how can people reach you if people want to follow your journey on your, before you get here in October? How do people follow you or get hold of you?
Yeah, so well, they should definitely come to the summit. Then we could also have a chat and a coffee and that kind of thing. I know I'm meeting some of the wonderful organizations down there also on the side of the summit. I'm really looking forward to also those more intimate conversations. I'm Laila Pawlak on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Laila Pawlak on LinkedIn, so I should be relatively easy to find there. So you can always find me there. And otherwise, I run an organization called Rehumanize Institute, and you can also find that online. Otherwise, they can reach out to you because you know how to get me. But I am really looking forward to going to South Africa again. I have so much love for the country and the people there. I met some amazing human beings there, and I love also doing work with individuals and organizations down there because there's so much potential. I have people working with me in my organization remote from South Africa, and it's just there's no time difference, and there's something that we can learn from each other from the global north and the global south, and I really think we should leverage that, and I'd love to see South Africa really leapfrog a lot of countries and lead the way for Africa into a more responsible era, because we really need somebody to drive that agenda. And I think South Africa has an enormous potential to do that from the African continent. So I can't help to contribute just a tiny bit to that when I get back there in October. It should be fun.
No, you've had a massive contribution on South Africa over the past 9 years. And we're so excited and grateful that you can continue that. And thank you so much. I hope everyone enjoyed that episode. Lyla, I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.
Please make sure to like and subscribe to Exponential Africa if you enjoyed that. And we will see you soon at the Singularity South Africa Summit. Cheers and keep smiling.